How do you apply graphics overlay and text into a talking head multi-camera edit of a video that you've put together in Adobe Premiere? Hey folks, welcome. My name is Belal Khan. This is the last part in a multi-series of videos that go into how to edit and produce multicam footage for your for whatever it is that you're producing. The example here is using my man Fatih Seferagic of a recitation piece that he does. That's what he does on YouTube. He records himself reciting, and he'll put that up on YouTube. He's got a bunch of viewers and followers that like his stuff, and so if you aspire to do something similar, whether it's recitation, singing, talking, whatever that activity is, then this might prove to be helpful to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example of how I do one piece, but one layer of this whole process. So up until this point, what have we covered so far? We have done basically how to organize your files and import them into Adobe Premiere and lay out your sequences in such a way that you can do a multi-camera edit. We've done color grading, and then from the color, after the color grade, although sometimes the color grade is supposed to be after the edit, I like to do the color grade first and then do the edit. And now that the edit is done, we are going to add the graphic overlays and text that would correspond with the content of the video. So how do we do that? Well, here we are. The project is open, and so but here's the thing, like right now all you see is basically him talking. Now since it's already edited, and what I'm just going to do is go ahead and enable the color correction layer that I had already applied, and boom, you'll see that the color correction is already done here. So and the cameras have been matched for exposure and everything. So now all we want to do is add some sort of visual element to correspond with what is being recited here. So so what he is reciting here is in a different language. It's not in English, it is in Arabic. And so the content of what he's saying, I want it to be kind of like subtitles, simple and straightforward. So the Arabic text we can find is in Quran.com for this particular video. So we simply go to the opening chapter, and what I do typically is I will go to the reading portion within this website, and you'll see the thing is already laid out for me, right? So if I just full screen this, I like to change the text of this into a different font, one to my liking. You can choose whatever font you like as well. So from here, how did I get here? Just in case, so I clicked on reading right up top here. I went to settings, and then once you hit on settings, you'll see this menu pop up. From here, you can select your font. You got various different fonts. You got font version 1, King Fahd Quran Complex version 2. I like this one personally. Then you have this one here. This is also clean. Then you have another one. They're all very similar. It's just a question of which font style you prefer. I prefer this one. And so once you've selected the font style, you can also change the size of the Arabic. And so I try to go ahead and make this as big as possible. And so until it fills my screen, essentially. What am I going to do? I'm going to simply go ahead and screenshot this. But before I do, because I'm doing subtitles, right? And he's going to be reciting different parts at various times. Actually, this text is actually a little too big. Let me go ahead and, because I want it actually verse by verse, right? Instead of the way that it appears in the text of a hardcover book. So let me go ahead and minimize this, make the Arabic font smaller, so this way it actually fits into a line. Let me go and scroll down to see if everything is in one line in wherever I want it to be. So there's actually this part here that is not in a single line. So let me go ahead and decrease the font size even further. And actually, this is going to be really small. Fascinating. Okay, so actually now what I'm going to do is go ahead and increase the text on the page in terms of how much width it does. I'm using Windows, right? So I can just do Control plus or minus, and that increases or decreases the size of the text. It's all vector form anyway, so I'm not losing any quality. So it might be command plus or minus. So that's what I'm basically doing here. So now that I've got all of the Arabic text in the appropriate size, I'm just literally going to screenshot. So I just press print screen on my keyboard. Simplest way to do this, you can do this in Photoshop, or you could do this in Paint. And I'll show you how I do it in Paint, because not everybody has Photoshop, right? So if you just open up Paint, I do Control V, and boom, like the whole thing is just set up here. But for the sake of speed, I am just gonna open up Photoshop because it's faster for me to do it that way. All right, so I open up Photoshop, empty file, Control V, and so basically however much 3 verses fit on a single page. So I scroll back down again, I got the next 3 verses, print screen, go back to Photoshop, Control V, and then in the last verse, so print screen, open up a Photoshop, Control V, and then from here I basically crop out the other stuff. I press C for that to access crop, the cropping tool, and so click the thing, drag, and that should let me also drag from the top here, and boom, so that gives me multiple layers, and I'll be able to appropriately crop out the Arabic text, and I'll show you how we do that in a moment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save each one of these graphics one by one. Now you can do this, now this is not the only way, this may not even be the best way. This is the way I would do it if I want to turn something around real quick. So let me go ahead and do Control save for web, because that's going to give me the best file size. PNG is okay. Save, and then where am I going to be saving this to? I'm going to go bring this over to where the project file is, which is here. And then I go into, actually I'll go ahead and create a new folder. I'm gonna call this AVGFX, right, for graphics and stuff. So, and I'll call this verses 1, right, boom, that's layer 1, and then layer 2, save for web, save, call this verses 2, right, delete, and then layer 3, file save, Control Shift Alt S, and then verses 4, or verses 3 in fact, yeah. Now that's done, close out Photoshop, and then from here, I'm gonna close out Photoshop completely. Now this is done, I'm gonna close this window, back in Premiere, go back into your project area, and then minimize everything, and then click on import, and from here we go to AVGFX, import that folder, and boom, all 3 of those files that I just created are imported in. So now the question is, how do we go about bring it in, right? So if I drag and drop this, that's what it looks like. We don't want it to look like that, right? So the first tool that we're going to be leveraging is called crop. So if we go to the effects tab right here, we type in crop, C-R-O-P, drag and drop right on top of the graphic itself. From here, we go to effects control, right? Because we want to be able to determine how this crop works. So essentially what we're going to do is we want to crop on both left, right, and bottom. So let's start with the left. So bring that over and stop. And then from the right, actually we don't need that, we can leave the right. Bring that up from the bottom and crop. Done. From here, I'll just scale that up a little bit, right? And then I can reposition that left, right. And so if I want the text to be right here in the center, right, I can have it right here in the center. But you might be wondering, like, yo, man, I can still see like the white background. How do we get rid of that? Number one is first what you do is you go to blend mode, and you can play around with this. You can go to multiply, and boom, it's done. But it doesn't look right. The reason it doesn't look right is because the text is black. How do we fix that? Well, there's a number of ways. What we can do is we can flip it, invert it. So if we go to effects and we click on invert, I-N-V-E-R-T, select that, drag and drop, and boom. But all of a sudden, you got a black block, right? And so instead of multiply, let's see, we look at lighten, bam. Now you got white text. Everything is clean. What if you were to look at other things? You look at screen, boom, that's even better. Just like that, you have white text, and you've got the white text coming over. Now that you've got the graphic, right, which basically is the Arabic, as the gentleman here is reciting, you can also see what he's reciting. But then the question is, if somebody does not speak the language or know the language, but you still want to be able to communicate what's being recited, you want to, let's say if you take it from the website, because let's say you don't know what it is, just go to the website, go to Quran.com, which is the source of that. But whatever the text is, you just want to have that ready to go. So in this case, most compassionate, most merciful, let's go with that. Control C, that's the text you're copying, right? And then from here, a deselect, make sure nothing is selected, right? Just deselect, click away, empty on the timeline. Go to graphics, new layer, text. Boom. You'll see a new text layer thing pop up. Now, all you have to do is, once it's selectable, double click that, Control V, boom, done. Now, the issue here is like, yo, that thing is not in the right spot. You're absolutely correct. We fixed that. Once you go into effects control and you will see the text that you just typed in there, what you want to do is you want to change the formatting and positioning of that text, center it. Once it's centered, now you can reposition that text however you deem fit. In terms of font choice and a little bit of design tips right here is make sure you use a sans serif font. Personally, I like Helvetica, but if you don't have Helvetica, Century Gothic is it's a good choice. Century Gothic regular. Actually, make sure you select the thing, because sometimes it gets deselected. So highlight that, and then from here select Century Gothic. Century, not Century Gothic, just Century. Or is it Century? Yeah, Century Gothic, my bad. So Century Gothic, that's a good option. You could even decrease the size of the font a little bit to be a little bit more fitting. And boom, there you go. Like, you've got your subtitles just like that. And so if you want to add a little bit of an effect, right? Because right now it just kind of jumps in, right? As he's reciting, it just pops up, and once he's done with the verse, right? Let's see, because I'm aligning it with when he's saying it. Boom! It just pops out. So if you wanted to like crossfade in or something like that, all you got to do is go to the effects. From here, select cross dissolve. Boom, and then drop. Select the other one, drop on one end, and then do the same thing on the other end. Boom. Now again, my preference is not to do this in Premiere. I would like to do this in After Effects, but After Effects is a whole different animal. And if you're just starting out on this, it's good to learn it in Premiere. And then if you're ready to level up your skills, and then you might be able to go into After Effects, and because it's a whole different setup mindset of using that. Because so for that reason, and Premiere, they've made it quite simple. So watch how this plays out. Boom. So fades in, fades out. You've got the graphic in there, and that's it, right? This is pretty straightforward. All you gotta do is just repeat the process. Now, one of the ways that you can just kind of repeat that process is don't like re-import and follow the same exact steps. Just copy and paste. All you gotta do is copy and paste. But how do you copy and paste in a way that's effective? So right now you'll notice how we've got a particular layer selected. Now it's deselected. Copy and paste into a selected layer. So select the layer that you want to copy and paste into. Because if you don't do that, if you have this and you highlight this, Control C, and then you go over to the next verse, and then you press Control V, it's like boom, it just you just literally overwrote what you have. That's why you got to make sure that the layer you don't want overwritten is not selected, and the layer that is the base layer first is selected. So in this case it's V2, video 2, and then you do Control V, and when you do that, that's when the next thing comes up. But then that's not the correct text or the graphic that is supposed to overlay with the with what's being said, because he's reciting the next verse now. So what you do here is, since you've already got the graphic because I did the first 3 verses in a screenshot, all I got to do is select this, go back to effects controls, right? And then just kind of reposition this thing back up where it was. And from here, I go back to crop and I open up the bottom part, and you'll notice, boom, hey, there's that other verse. but it's not, I don't see all of it. What's the deal? Well, it's because on the right side, there you go. And now you select this from the top and you bring that all the way down until you've got this to be wherever you want. And sometimes you need a guide, right? In terms of where you want your text to appear. You want it to be centered, for example. Right click, make sure your safe margins are open, and you'll see exactly where the center marker is. And then from here, you can select that and just kind of eyeball it in terms of where it's going to be centered. And then again, go back to the text here, and then copy and paste that to replace this text right over here, right? So highlight this, Control V, done. You've already selected the font, is done. Now you just repeat this process again for the next verse. I'll just do it real quick. Control C, Control V, boom. And so I select this, bump it up again, and extend the bottom, and boom. So that's exactly what I want. Bring out the top again, so that way there's no other part of it that's showing. And eyeball that in terms of centering. From here, select the English subtitle translation that would correspond with what we're looking at here. Just make sure that your text is what's just being selected. Control C, Control V, boom, done. Now that I've used up all of the elements of the text, now I got to drag and drop again from the get-go. Just make sure that when you do Control V, you have to slightly adjust to match the waveform in terms of where the verse begins and ends. Right, so now we go ahead and drag in the second set of verses. Drag and drop, extend that all the way, apply the same. So now, again, to save yourself the trouble, so all you have to do is go back to the original verse, right? Go to Effects, Control, and then from here, you look at Motion, and while pressing Control, you also hit Crop and Invert, and also Opacity, because that also has the blend mode. Just copy those settings, Command C or Control C, and then select a new guy, Control V, boom, and you're already exactly where you want it to be. So do the same thing with the text, Control C. Now, because you're copying a third video layer, make sure you select the third video layer to paste it into and deselect the second video layer. Otherwise, you'll just overwrite the second video layer, and you don't want to do that. So now obviously that's not the corresponding text to the Arabic. And then from here you do Control C, and then you bring this over here again, select the thing, highlight, paste, boom, done. And I just keep repeating this process. Now, one thing you'll notice right now, see, I pasted that. The text is centered, but the graphic is not. So just kind of eyeball that, and boom, now it's centered. And then again, now you do the same process like we did before. Control C, Control V, right? Make sure that the video layers are selected. Boom. And then drag that over to fill the appropriate length of the waveform. One thing you notice that the effect of the cross dissolve is not here. So I go to media browser, I'm sorry, effect itself, cross dissolve, drag and drop. And let's try that again. Cross dissolve, drag and drop, boom, done. Grab the other one, cross dissolve, drag and drop, done. Do it again on the next one, drag and drop. Do it again on the next one, drag and drop. And we are good. Now, you just want to copy and paste. This is what we got. Now we want to make sure that the appropriate graphic is being overlaid. Go back to Effect Controls. Now we do the same thing we did before. Now, because we're going to adjust the crop, we're just going to drag this up. Boom. Now, just again, this is for left and right or X-axis. This is for up and down, Y-axis. And now we open up the bottom, so we get the part of the text that we want to see in the Arabic. We open up the left side to see the end of the verse, and then we open up, close up the bottom a little bit so we don't get the other parts of it, parts of the graphic. Now from the top, we bring that down as well, and done. Now we drag this down and drag this over. Make sure we're just kind of eyeballing it in terms of where it is in regards to centering, and done. Now, so copy, and then we do Control V again. We just keep repeating this process until we are, and you're seeing me do this in real time, right? So let's do this again from the bottom, open this up. Oh yeah, we gotta just make sure we drag that so we have enough room to open up to. So from the bottom, drag this down all the way, and from the top, close that up, and now center that using your eyes, and just slightly there, and boom, just like that, we're good. Now we gotta again look at the text, make sure that we have the appropriate subtitle corresponding. And now one thing you notice, I did a copy and paste here, and some of these don't copy over really well, so I'm just gonna copy and paste the other one over here. So now what you could do is you could just go in and manually edit that, right? So you alone, and then the word alone, because in the language it's implied alone, but it's not literally saying alone. But the way that the wording is, that it's understood that you're saying you alone as opposed to so what's funny is that, so in the process of me talking about it, I actually missed a copy and paste of a previous one. So this actually, you alone, Control C, needs to go over here because it's not matching that. So that goes here, but then I got to go over here, guide us along the straight path. Boom, this goes over here. Make sure that you've selected that. Control A, Control V, and now we have the long verse, the path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, and not the path of those whom have earned your anger, or of those who have gone astray. So highlight, select this, Control A, Control V. Now, boom, you pasted a long piece that goes extend. That's fine. Go into the thing, go into the text editor, and find out where you're gonna do the line break. Boom, line break is set. And at the same time, so we've done 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is the third graphic. So we go here and we drag and drop graphic number 3, and we need to extend this up to this part here. Grab that, extend it, and then we go into the effect. We go to cross dissolve, apply the effect itself. Apply the effect itself here. But remember, copy and paste the settings that you had already applied as opposed to doing it from the get-go. So motion, press and hold Control, opacity, crop, and then drag down, invert, and then Control C, drag that over here, Control V. But you're looking at this and you're like, hey, where's the graphic? Where's the image? Well, what we need to do is we need to open up the image a little bit, and from the top, open up the image. There we go. There's the image right there. So from the bottom, close it out until we see the text. Open it up from the left side a little bit and move this over. As you can see now, this thing is starting to fill up space. And boom, that's the end of the verse. Drag that down into the appropriate position and then drag it over so that it is centered. Now you got the guides, because it's long enough, you can kind of see also where the centering is, and that's it. And the thing is done. Boom, done. And as the image, and that's it. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. You can add your text, you can add your graphics, do this over and over. Again, it's not the fastest way, but it is a way that works. And if you only want to stick to one program, you could put out hundreds of videos using this process if you're into recitation and whatnot, or whatever it is, right? You want to add subtitles to videos, right? This would be the way to do it. You want to add any kind of graphic that might have a white background or a black background. Using the blend mode, you'll be able to apply the settings as needed. So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.